Hello, everyone. We are delighted to welcome you back for the second in our finance series. We're excited to have Donald Wells back to talk to us today about nonprofit budgeting, which includes some conversation about QuickBooks. So looking very much forward to that. Donald, who joined us last month, is joining us again, has been practicing in the field of accounting for 30 years. In that time, he's worked for several accounting firms, including Price Waterhouse, Schneider Downs, Hemphill and Associates. Donald started his own CPA firm, Wells CPA LLC, in January 2015. And over the past 30 years, Donald has worked extensively in a number of industries, including the nonprofit industry. Donald has served on several boards in Central Ohio. The current board includes the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Social Ventures, Catalyst, Columbus, and the National Christian Foundation of Ohio. Donald holds a bachelor's degree from West Virginia Wesleyan College and is a certified public accountant in the state of Ohio. Before I pass things over to Donald this morning, a quick reminder for how things roll with our nonprofit forums. This session is being recorded. It will be made available to you after the forum is complete using the email that you used to register for this. It's also accessible on our YouTube channel along with all of our other forums. So if you go to the Columbus Foundation's YouTube channel, you will find it there. Closed captioning is also available here. If you go to the bottom black bar in your screen and click more and then click show subtitles, you will see the closed captioning appear on your screen. You can also move the closed captioning around your screen by clicking and dragging to whatever is suitable for you. At the end of this forum, you will be emailed this slide deck and a link to this forum, and also a survey that we ask that you complete so that we know how we're doing. Please do complete the survey. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Donald.
Danielle, thank you. Thank you. And thank you to the Columbus Foundation. Once again, I just continuously thank them for the resources that they provide the not-for-profit community. Today is going to be a tough presentation. Typically, I do most of this one-on-one, so we're going to bounce through it. I look forward to it. Danielle mentioned the survey. Please, because I'm personally doing, I think, 5 more of these. Most people complete the surveys when they have recommended suggestions. I'm very open to those, but I'm also open to the things that you liked, so that we can make sure we build around the strengths. So please take the time to complete those surveys. They're extremely beneficial to the Columbus Foundation and to me as an individual. So I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. I almost forgot to share my screen. So hopefully you are seeing a slide deck for nonprofit finance basics, QuickBooks, and budgeting and introduction. That's where we're going to go. And we're going to go through this in a couple of different ways. So let's get ready to go. So a little bit about myself. Danielle, as always, has done a great introduction. So the introduction to the training session and some disclaimers, okay? I want to give you some disclaimers. There are many different options from a accounting standpoint. I'm a fan of QuickBooks. I will tell you I'm a fan of QuickBooks. You have some high-end things like MIP that's available. Churches use church windows. There's for the younger generation that love apps, there's Wave. So there's a lot of different options that are available. I'm a fan of QuickBooks. The reason that I'm a fan of QuickBooks is that it provides you with the pure accounting type format without needing to be an accountant. Some of the higher end things, MIP, churches, I would even put Great Plains in this area. Really take some accounting knowledge in order to generate what you need. Then there's other things like maybe a Wave, which may be a little bit limited in what it can do for you. It may be sufficient at certain stages, but I don't know that it can take you all the way through. So that's why I'm a fan. QuickBooks is by far, in my opinion, the easiest and least expensive software that exists on the market today. I will tell you that the platform is getting more complicated. The platform is changing a little bit, and we'll talk about some of those things. We will use some of the online versions of QuickBooks. A lot of the data entry, the real live work that we're going to do today is going to be in the desktop version. So we're going to go back and forth a little bit between those two versions. Let me see here. We have in our client base, we have about 90% or so that are on QuickBooks. Our largest client is a federal agency, greater than $9 million of revenue. They use QuickBooks. They use an enhanced version of it, but they use QuickBooks. The reporting for them and the reporting for the smallest agency looks exactly the same and is sufficient for all purposes. I'm self-taught, and that's good and that's bad. I bounce around a little bit. There are QuickBooks Pro advisors that exist in the marketplace. You can track them down. What I find is that most of the advisors, and if you go through training with QuickBooks, they're going to teach you the entire package. What I'm going to show you today is probably 7 or 8 clicks of the mouse to get you to all the reporting that you need for running your not-for-profit. Now, is there more to the software? Absolutely there is. But I also want to keep it as simple as I can to get you where you need to go. There's going to be, and I put this slide together just because I want to say, okay, at the beginning, here's where we're going. At the end, we're going to circle back to this. QuickBooks has a not-for-profit version. All my clients will say, Don, do I need the not-for-profit version? And the answer to that is not necessarily. The only difference between the for-profit version and the not-for-profit version is differences in terminology. Statement of position is a nonprofit term. I think I have the nonprofit terms all across the top of this slide. Balance sheet is a for-profit term. The documents themselves are exactly the same. They're exactly the same. So the reporting is exactly what you need, whether you're in either package. You just have to know the terminology. Probably the other thing that is a difference in the for-profit versus the not-for-profit version of QuickBooks is that in the for-profit version, they use the terminology customers. In the not-for-profit version, they use donors. So you just have to kind of navigate the differences in terminology. What we're going to go through today is not intended to be a detailed training. So as we go through this, my keystrokes probably are going to be a little bit quicker than if I was trying to get you up and running on the software. What I want to do is, if you're using the software, I want to show you a couple of enhancements. If you don't use the software, I want to give you a concept of where you can get to in the software with a couple of different enhancements or a couple of different keystrokes. One of the features, and I'm going to jump right into this, one of the features that exist that if you and I would have had this conversation 5 years ago, and 5 years ago, some of you may have been at a training that I did for the Urban League, and we talked about this feature called bank feeds. And I said, hate it, wish they take it out. Today, invaluable feature. I want to just throw this out here. I'm going to show you some examples of it. So what are bank fees? Bank fees are the way that you can get information into your accounting software without doing manual data entry. It interacts with your bank. So QuickBooks has been set up to interact with your bank. One of the things that's vital is that you have separate bank accounts, and you can set up as many as, I think, 60 bank accounts to interact. So it's a really big and robust feature. The only flaw that I know right now is that it only knows what the bank knows. So you take an allocation that you need to do. Well, it still doesn't know that. So that still is something where you would need to have some expertise to help you. The bank feeds start to allow you to use the expertise to help you get home regarding some reporting. One of the upcoming sessions, we're going to talk about, okay, what should I get from an accountant? What should I get from a CPA? That will change based upon how you have data going into your system. So there's some decisions that you have to make. The biggest decision that you have to make is board reporting. What does the board want to see, and how do they want to see it? And then what do you need to manage? So, but I just want to throw this feature out there because that's kind of going to drive the rest of the stuff that we talk about for the next few minutes. Let me show you what a bank feed looks like. So this is from the online version of QuickBooks. And what we've done here is, we've hidden the client, yay us, and we've shown what a bank feed would look like. So what you're looking at is data that's come into the bank or come in from the bank from the accounting software. So let me pause and take a breath. What I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to put data into the software, show you how data gets into the software so that we get data out of the software that's important. At the last session, we talked about the balance sheet, income statement, statement of functional, those type of things. Well, we can't get that information out until we get information in. So what I'm trying to do right now is show you how you can get information in without doing a lot of accounting work. Okay, so this information, this window will show you the what a bank feed would look like. And what I've done is I've highlighted some of the fields so that you know, okay, this is the information I really need to enter. I've highlighted the field of what they call classes. What classes are in QuickBooks is lines of business. What we're going to work on is program, admin, and fundraising. If you remember and you think about your Form 990, that is the minimum that you should be capturing information by. Lines of business. The IRS considers every not-for-profit to have those 3 lines of business. So we're going to use those 3 lines of business as we put data into our system. Can you detail that out further? Absolutely. For instance, if you have a Head Start program, you can make Head Start a subset, or you can make Head Start their own class. You just need a vision for the information you need out. And that's what the classes get used for. You may see, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but right after class is a tag field. The reason that the tags are being used, and the reason I want to bring this up, is that the newer versions of online QuickBooks do not have classes. Everything is tagged. I've had conversations with QuickBooks, and they expect that sometime in the next year that classes will go away and tags will be replacing that. The feature works exactly the same. So don't get fearful of, well, wait a minute, Don, you're talking about classes and now we go to tags. The feature works exactly the same. It's just a way to keep track of a line of business. Vendor and customer is a field that you would need to put in here. That becomes really important for 1099 reporting and also for reporting of contributors. So again, you put in your vendor, And you can see, if you can see, there's a little drop down menu. If the vendor's not in there, you simply type it in. We'll get to that in a minute, because I'm actually going to do some data entry in a few minutes for you. Category. I wish there was a different word for this. What I try to use from a category standpoint to help people understand is why or what did we purchase here, and then use the big terminology of supplies or salaries or something like that. This is what we call in accounting the accounts, the natural expenditures. These are your revenue expenses accounts. Generally, you would have your balance sheet also in here, but this is the why did we make this transaction from a category standpoint. If you're concerned about do you have too many or too few, here's what I like to. I was just in a meeting yesterday with a client, and probably a oversimplification, I will gladly admit to it, but whether you are a $250,000 not-for-profit organization or whether you are the American Cancer Foundation, when you complete your 990, the Internal Revenue Service has 24 categories that everything has to go in. So when I see a chart of accounts or listing of categories that are in the hundreds and 200s, yeah, I start to think that that's maybe too many for people to manage. That's always a side conversation, and there's a lot of ways to determine what you need and what you don't need. Again, that's maybe where you can get some professional assistance in that to help you think through those things. One of the neatest features that most people do not use is that you can add an attachment to every transaction. This becomes valuable because that allows Intuit, the makers of QuickBooks, to become your filing system. Then when someone like me comes in to do an audit, and I say, I want to see the support for this transaction, I'm able to view the attachment. That feature has been invaluable to us as auditors as we've started to do more and more remote audits, because the documentation is all there. If you ever have a concern about, am I documenting it? Do I need to keep this receipt or this or that? And just attach it. It becomes an electronic file that you can use. So that is a lot of detail about the data entry features of the bank feed. Long and short of it is that if you use the bank feed, there's a class, there's a customer, there's a category that you need to have. So there's 3 pieces of information that you'll enter. And I will show you how these 3 pieces get to the end product. As I've worked with not-for-profit organizations and I've worked with small business owners, the conversation starts to become, hey, Don, I don't know how I know if this is right. I had a professor in college that I loved dearly, really took a chance on me and allowed me to do some unique things. He said the greatest disservice we do is that we think that accounting is black and white. We think that there's a right and a wrong in accounting, and accounting is really an art form. So people get bound up and not able to do budgets because they don't know if it's right or not. Budgets are guesstimations. They're just a guess. Now, here's what I will tell you. If you guess today and you just wildly guess, in 12 months, you should be better at your guessing. And in 12 months after that, you should be better at your guessing. And you start to develop history, you start to develop techniques, you start to understand. So whether you do a budget today or whether you wait to do your first budget in 6 months, it's going to be wrong and it's going to be a mess. You just have to start and learn from it. I see too many businesses who won't do budgets because they're not sure if they know how to. It's a guesstimation. It's always a guesstimation. Now, are there things that someone like me can look at, someone like you can look at, say, you know, that doesn't make sense. Yes. Yes. And that's how you tighten down your guesstimation. So I want to kind of free you up as a truly an entrepreneur. I mean, you are in the not-for-profit space, but you're truly an entrepreneur. I want to free you up to be willing to go and to create budgets, and don't worry about the right and wrongness of it. You'll get better once you start the process. One of the things that we're going to do in just a minute is I'm going to enter a budget simply to show you the reporting that you can get out of QuickBooks. So, and it's going to be a complete guesstimation. Let me see here. We talked about classes. One of the other things that I want to mention as we look at classes or tags is that I said that you can use them for programs. You can use them for anything that you want to create. We have one client right now that is very interested. They have students and they want to keep track of their students' balances. How much money has a student raised versus how much money has a student spent? And we've just set the students up as classes so that when transactions come in, we can tag or assign a transaction to a student so that at any point in time, that parent will know, hey, I'm either underwater or I have to raise some more money or whatever the situation is. This is where you become creative and you determine what type of reporting do you want out. We talked about that. All right, so hold on with me for just a second as I switch us over to a live version of QuickBooks. All right, cool. So now we're in a live version of QuickBooks. So we're going to do some crazy things. I'm going to move around in here a lot simply to show you how simple it is to set data up. Again, this is not intended to necessarily train you on the keystrokes. The very first thing I want to do is I want to set up a budget, and we've already talked about how a budget is a guesstimation. So, and if somebody can't see something, or Danielle or Victoria, if someone can't see or you can't see, please pop on and let me know. I see some comments in the chat and in Q&A. I'm not checking those right now. So if there's an issue with anything, let me know, please. So we're going to go into budget and we're going to set up some budgets. We're going to do it by class and we're going to create it from scratch. So here we go. You can see here I have the classes all set up in admin, fundraising, and program. So I'm going to put a budget in for payroll of $1,000 a month of admin. And then it has a feature where I can copy it all the way across. I'm going to put a budget in for accounting for $500 a month. Let me be fair to myself, right? And I'm going to copy that all the way across. So I'm going to save that. Then I'm going to come in, I'm going to do a fundraising budget. And I'm going to say we're going to have revenue of $2,000 a month. We're going to have salaries of $75 a month to do fundraising. I'm going to save that. And then we're going to do our programming expenses. So our programming expenses, we're going to have supplies of $1,000. We're going to have wages of $10,000. And we're just going to copy that across. And we're going to have some program income of $5,000 a month. Okay. So I have just created a budget, and let's make sure that it took before we go on, because I want to make sure that we don't mess anything up. There we go. So there's our budget report. And if I want to, yes.
I just wanted to pop in and say, if you could slow down just a little bit so that you can follow what tabs you're going into.
Gotcha. Not a problem. I said I was going to be fast, so thank you for that. So I'll start over again. So we've entered a budget. And the way that we entered that is that we went to company, planning and budget, and to set up budget. Then what we did is we set it up by the different classes. So we set budgets up by different classes. Then we saved it. So I want to make sure that the budget is in the system. So I go to reports, and there is a budget and forecasting feature, budget overview. And then it's just asking me, is that the budget you want? Yes, it is. Sure, show it to me by month. And there we go. There's our agency-wide budget for each month. I can then customize it just to make sure that everything's in there. So I go to a customized feature. The same features exist whether you're on desktop or online. They're just found in different places. So you can customize the feature. You can say, you know what, I only want to look at a certain class. Let me just look at my admin class. And you'll see that there's the admin that I put in for accounting of $500 a month, and then payroll expenses of $1,000 a month. So my budget is in the system now. So I'm happy and I'm good. So now I'm going to create just a little bit of activity in the system. This is where I am very different than a lot of other accountants, which is one of the reasons that I named my podcast a different type of bean counter. I'm just a little different in some of these things. I believe that most not-for-profits really only need 2 or 3 features in QuickBooks to make everything work for you. I'm going to go into the, I'm going to do the data entry piece right now that you would be able to use the bank feed for if they were set up. I can't set the bank feed up in a training system because I need a live bank to do that. And I don't think that anybody wants to see my banking activity, nor do I think any of my clients want me linking their banks to a live version of QuickBooks that I'm sharing with everyone. So for that reason, I've got to do a little bit of data entry, but I hope that you'll see the correlation between it. So if I receive a contribution, that means money's coming in and I'm doing all of the data entry. I'll go to banking and I'm going to make a deposit. You'll see that I have the account set up to be right pat. So today I'm going to receive a contribution from Donald Wells. That is how easy it is to add something to your system. I'm going to do a direct public. So all I did, I started typing in contribution. I'm going to do a direct public support from Donald. I'm going to tab over. Donald's contribution is to cover administrative costs. So I'm going to say it's contribution for administrative costs, and it's going to be $2,500. On this same deposit, I also got a check from GCA. No. I got a check from the Columbus Foundation. So I'm going to add them. I just added the Columbus Foundation. The Columbus Foundation also gave me direct public support. However, their contribution is for program purposes, and it was $10,000. Okay. So basically, I'm taking $12,500 to the bank. Then I save it. If I then come and run a profit and loss statement for the year, you'll see there's my 12,500. So I didn't have to necessarily know the debits and the credits and all of the accounting. Now I'm going to spend some of that money that came in. So let's go to banking again, and we're going to write a check. So we're going to write a check from our right pad account to ADP for payroll purposes. We're going to make an electronic fund transfer. I'll make that bigger. And we're going to say payroll is $5,000. I think I have payroll expense is what I call it. We're going to split the payroll, and we're going to say that $3,000 of it is program. We're going to say that 1,000 of it, or 1,500 of it, is administration, and we're going to say that 500 of it is fundraising. I've now allocated. The big terminology that we talk about in accounting is allocated expenses. I just did it. That is one of the most difficult things that organizations struggle with is, Don, I don't know how to get my allocations in the system. That data entry right there just did it. When you're on the bank feed, it is exactly the same, okay? I'm going to write one more check, because I think that we are starting to run long time. And I'm going to write a check to Staples for $500 for, this is good, for office supplies. You'll see that it says, hey, you don't have office supplies in your system. You'll see that it says, hey, you don't have office supplies in your system. Do you want to set it up? Yep. It's an expense account. I have just added office supplies to my system, and I'm going to make them all program expenses, okay? So I just put a little bit of data in the system, a little bit of data. I want to show you this. So based upon using that one feature, banking, write checks, banking, make deposit, I now have a balance sheet, okay? That's one of the key statements that we talked about last month. My balance sheet tells me how much money is left in the bank account. That's all that I have on my balance sheet right now. That's fine. I also have in reports, company and financial, a profit and loss standard. I also have an income statement now. So that income statement is one of those key reports that the board should be looking at, that you should be using to manage by. If I go to reports again, company and financial, profit and loss by class. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I hit job. Let me correct that. Reports, profit and loss by class. And you'll see I have a functional expense. There's my admin, there's my fundraising, there's my program, how much money I brought in, and how much I've spent each category. So I have the setup already for my Form 990. My statement of functional has done that for me. Now the last, so that's, I know that's fast, but there's one more report. So we go to banking, I'm sorry, we'll go to reports, budgets and forecasts, budget versus actual. I want to use the current year budget, look at it by month, that's fine. I'm going to change this so that we don't have all the columns. So just forgive me for that. All I'm doing is changing the columns so I can show it year to date. Okay. So you'll see, oh, wait a minute. didn't like the way I did that. Let me do another report. Give me just a second. I'm sorry. Oh, I know what's wrong. I know what's wrong. Let me see the best way for me to fix it real fast. Give me just a second. I apologize, Danielle. I apologize, everyone. This is why we love working with live data. My transactions are 22 when my budget is 23. I did 2 different years, so forgive me. Give me just a second and I will get it all fixed for you.
This is okay. We'll make mistakes here, so you're teaching us how to get ourselves.
How to fix them. Okay. So forgive me for that. What I've done is I've just moved all the activity to 23 instead of 22. So now we're back at the reports, budgets, and actual. There we go. There we go. Okay. So now you see that I'm able to run. And again, what I did incorrectly is that if you look at the document, you'll see that it's year 2023. I have no idea why I did that. So I had to move the activity into 23 so I could demonstrate this. But you'll see that there is a budget to actual. So here's my agency budget. That's the information I put in. Here's my actual, where I'm at so far this year, and my percentages. Now we put the budget to actual in by class. So if I wanted to, I could then come over here and say, hey, where am I at regarding my administrative costs? So all I did there is I customized the report. I said, I only want to look at my administrative class. And now I'm able to run a budget to actual by each class. Okay. So I know that's quick. I know that was very, very fast. I know that's very difficult to follow. So forgive me for some of that jumping around. Again, the purpose that I was shooting for was to show you what the system could do for you in just a couple of keystrokes. What we were able to look at just now, we were able to look at the balance sheet. We were able to look at the profit and loss by class, and budget the actual reporting. What I want you to understand is that the simplicity of that is that I did banking, deposit, banking, write checks, and then generated reports. And I was able to get everything that I needed for a grantor or for a board. I know that that's hard. I'm hopeful that this will be the last session where we end up bouncing between a PowerPoint and live data. I also hope that I don't make the mistake of entering the live data poorly for you, because I know that causes confusion. I think that we are running short on time, so I'm going to close right now and let there be question and answer time. The upcoming forums that exist, I'm really excited about the next couple. The 990 is one that I'm super pumped about. Financial management is what's coming next. And we'll really talk about how do we, once we get the data, what is it that we're looking for out of the data and how do we make decisions? So Danielle, thank you. Thank you, Columbus Foundation. Thank those of you that participated. I know there's some questions, so I'm going to stop sharing, I think.
So Donald, you did a fabulous job of taking very technical concepts and putting them into a PowerPoint session like this. We have a question in the comment right now that says, how do I register for future events? Really good question. The Columbus Foundation does send out emails that alert you to future events, but you can also find these events set up on Eventbrite. If you just search for the Columbus Foundation, you will find a whole list of events there, including all of our forums and this one and any of the rest in this series. We have a lot of questions and
I'm sure you do.
A lot of folks who are really happy with the content. And some of the questions do get very specific. I think it's because the content is very tactical. So I'm going to do my best to keep the spirit of the question while kind of combining questions that make sense together. We got a lot of questions around the class versus the tag. Mm-hmm. That piece. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, for example, let's see, for example, how does one use tags in place of class? Currently, tags do not split out. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Tags do split out. So you would use tags exactly the same way as classes. I will tell you that the tag reporting is a little more difficult than the class reporting to get out, but you use them tactically the exact same way. Danielle, one of the things that I'm going to offer is that because this is so tactical and everyone has my phone number, if you have a specific question for your specific software, pick up the phone, give me a call. We'll do 15 minutes real quick for you. And we will not run the meter for that because I know this is tough to understand and to look at when you're looking at someone else's data. But the answer to that question is that tags and classes are interchangeable. The reporting for tags in today's QuickBooks Online is a little more difficult to get to the same place, but you can get to the same place.
Okay, so we are getting some questions about how to reach you. Your contact information is on the slides, which will be sent after the duration of this forum. So you can definitely reach Don there. Let's see, there are some questions about how do you enter information. So this is a really tactical one too, and you may need to take us back to it, but is there a way to enter an amount for the year and divide it across 12 months?
Yes.
Okay.
So what I did, there's two ways to do it. One way is that you can divide it by 12 months and copy and enter that month in January and enter that total in January and then say copy across. So you end up being the same way. You can enter the total in an annual budget, depending on how you set it up, and then say divided by 12. I just did not use that feature when I was doing the budget process. So the answer to your question is yes. It may take you an additional step so that when you're creating your budget from scratch, you tell the system that's the way that you want to enter it.
Okay, I want to say, because we only have the next few minutes to go, about 25 minutes or so. If you have questions, also go ahead and put them in the question box. Typically what we do with the forums is if we get more questions than we're able to answer in the session, we will ask Don if he can answer some of those by text, and we send those questions out along with the post-forum material. So if you have the questions, definitely leave them in the Q&A box. So here's another one for you. We are changing categories in our QuickBooks, and it will be completely change by the middle of the year. Is there a way to update all of the categories from the beginning of the year to match the new entries?
The answer to that is yes. And that's a tactical question, Danielle. So I'm going to give them a very tactical answer. What you would want to do is on your, I call it the flag in the ground date, whatever that date is, you want to take those old categories and make a journal entry to the new categories, and then you will make the old categories inactive. That way you keep all your history if you need it, but that balance gets moved over into your new category. Very tactical. I didn't show you journal entries. The way that you'll find out where to go to journal entries is you would go to the company feature and make journal entry if you're in desktop. If you're in the online version, there is a plus signal or plus sign. You hit the plus sign, and then you will see the opportunity to add a journal entry. I don't usually show people that because that requires a knowledge of debits and credits, but you can get there through the journal entry feature.
Okay. So we have an additional one. Where can we get a list of categories used for the 990N filing?
Very nice. So what I will do, or what you can, if Danielle, if that's in the chat, I'll link it for you, but you can Google Form 990. And if you Google the Form 990, that document will come up, a 990 will come up, and I'm going to see if I can tell you exactly what page I want you to look at. My staff's probably yelling at me right now because they know the exact page. The page that you want to look at is, and Danielle, I'll share my screen real quick if you don't mind.
No problem.
So it's the page 10 of the Form 990, the Statement of Functional. And you'll see that the Internal Revenue Service basically has 23 lines that everything gets reported back to them in. So once you get much more than these 23 lines, it should be for management purpose and not for an external reporting purpose. So it's Form 990, page 10.
All right, next question. What are the 3 classes or lines of business that you mentioned?
Program, administration, and fundraising. And the reason that I focus on those 3 lines of business is because on that Form 990, page 10, you'll see that you're supposed to break your expenditures out by program, admin, management in general, and fundraising. So all I'm doing is matching my internal records up with the external requirements of the Internal Revenue Service. You can always go in more detail if you need to for management purposes, but for external reporting purposes, that's what I'm trying to match to.
Okay. And do you have recommendations regarding the online version of QuickBooks versus the desktop?
So I personally like the desktop more. It's more simple. However, QuickBooks is going away from that. They're not supporting it much longer. So you will want the online version. Another promo, if you're not familiar with it, is TechSoup. TechSoup. We generally will purchase it from there for our clients. Yeah, thanks, Kim. TechSoup is awesome. You can get all your software there. You can get QuickBooks for, I think right now it's going for a 2-year subscription for like $75. So it's the resource that you want to use.
Okay, let's see. Trying to get my, this is another tactical one, but where do you find the bank feed in QuickBooks?
Yeah. So there's two places. Let me see if I can do it real quick. Yeah. So I'm gonna show you on the, let me see if I can find my screen right here. So if you're working off the desktop version, it's banking, and then there's bank feeds right there where you could set up your account. On the online version, there down the right hand side, there is a banking feature, and the bank feeds are found inside of that feature, inside that drop down menu.
Okay, I want to draw your attention to the chat box really quickly. There's a good conversation about technology happening over there. So if there's something of interest to you, got some good information that is getting shared there. Let's see. The next one is asked, how do you display actual versus budgets, budgeted by month?
Yes. So so you will go to reporting, budgets and forecast, budget versus actual. And then it's asking you which budget you want to use. And again, I'm using 2023 because that's the budget I set up. And then it will ask me, hey, do you want to do it by month? Do you want to do it by class? How do you want to do it? I want to do it just by month. And then it creates you'll see that January, February, March doesn't have any actual activity in it because I didn't enter any. Then in April, there's my activity we entered today, and then the budget. So those are the steps to generate that report.
Okay. We have, how do you input budget items that are not the same every month or do not occur in some months?
Very great question. That is a phenomenal question. So I'm going to go back to my company, and I'm going to go back into my budget and planning, and I'm going to set up a budget. So we're back into this budget amount. So let's say that from an administrative standpoint, I know that I'm going to have legal fees in February. So you just skip those months and you say, I just keyed in 250. And then in October, we're going to have the attorney look at a 990 for some reason. And I just keyed in 250. This is one of the wonderful things about QuickBooks. They've done a great job of designing it behind the system, but it simply is Excel. So you would just enter what you want into each of the monthly columns. And that's the way that you would enter a expenditure that either didn't occur every month or incurred in different amounts every month. The one thing that I did not show you, and maybe I should, I don't have any data in here for it. But if I was to create a new budget, it will ask me, do I want to create it from scratch or do I want to use last year's numbers? It will pull in the actual activity by month for the previous year as a starting point for current year budget if you've been on QuickBooks for 12 months. So that's the other really nice feature. If you know historically you don't incur some cost every month.
Okay, so this question says that on the online version, they're wondering if you can show the data entry by going through the bank tab or not that way. So the question actually says, you did the easy data entry by going through the banking tab at the top of your screen. I have the online version and that isn't showing. Can you show the equivalent online?
Give me a second. Let me see if I can get into a client data or a data record that isn't going to mess up anybody.
While you're doing that, I'm going to ask you one of our next questions, see if you can do both at the same time.
Sure.
Do you think it's better to just categorize transactions monthly via the bank feed, or to enter transactions as they are completed, like your deposit and check example?
Yeah, so I've changed my answer on this over the years. I'm going to ask you for you to make a real good decision on your personality. Is it easier for you to sit down once a week, once every 3 weeks, and already have the data in front of you that tells you what you need to do? Or is it easier for you to deal with each piece of paper that comes across your desk? So if it's easier for you to sit down with everything in front of you already, and you just have to deal with it, then I'm a bank feed person. If you're somebody that says, you know what, this piece of paper, I have to deal with it right now, then the data entry, the quick entry, is the easier way. What I have learned is that if I try to force a square peg into a round hole, we get no accounting. We get no financial reporting because it becomes too hard. So that's really a personality question and a question about how you want to use your time. Danielle, for that individual or that person that says, hey, Don, I can't find the feature, have them reach out to me directly. I can't dummy up an online file. So I will walk with them through their online system to help them find it.
Okay. And the next question is, how do you add a grant line?
Okay.
I think you did address this, but it wasn't necessarily called a grant in the.
Absolutely. So I'm going to show you both things just in case I'm not understanding the question correctly. So again, I'm going to be in the online or the desktop version. So let's say that I'm going to make a deposit. And once again, I got some money from the Columbus Foundation that is for a specific grant. Let's say it's for a food pantry. I would just enter the food pantry as a class. It's going to say, hey, do you really want to add this? I say, yep. And then I want to add that so that it rolls into my program total. So I've now added it. Or you're saying, hey, Don, we got a grant. I just want to account for it as a grant line item in a category. I'm going to set that up as an income account. And I want it to show as a program revenue. So there's two, I did it two different ways. I'm not exactly sure which way you were asking for it. So now if I go back to my profit and loss by class, go to banking, company and financial, profit and loss by class, you will see that now I have the food pantry line showing up so that I can now track my money and my expenditures by the food pantry line. And then the food pantry rolls into my total other. And then I also have a grant line in case that's what you're asking. So I'm not sure exactly which way you were going, but that shows you how to do it both ways. And it simply is just a data entry as you're entering a transaction.
Okay. So the next question is, could one get duplicate entries if you enter an expense manually, but it also gets entered by the bank feed?
Yeah, which was always my biggest concern. I will tell you, that was always my biggest concern. But over the years, QuickBooks has added a feature where it searches for matching transactions. So you have the opportunity to say, match this transaction with one that's already entered. So there's not a duplicate in that case.
Okay. And here's a broad question. Do you feel that the difference in terminology for nonprofit financials contributes to the lack of understanding broadly in how nonprofits operate and make business decisions?
That's an interesting question. I've not given that a whole lot of thought. I personally believe that the use of the for-profit terminology helps board members because it's what they're used to seeing, it's what they're used to calling things. So I personally believe that my experience is that a lot of times when I'm doing a for-profit or when I'm doing a training session for a board, they will sometimes get lost in the terminology because it's still new to them. So I will use the for-profit terminology. So it's an interesting question. I'd like to consider it more because I understand that there is an element of difference in the type of organization, and that terminology, kind of creates that difference. But I don't know that I necessarily on the surface see that as a problem from an understanding standpoint. I'd love to think about it some more because I haven't thought a whole lot about that.
I think you mentioned one thing there that is something we can take with us about how we use terminology when we relate to our different stakeholders to make sure that we're sending the message that we want to send regardless of the audience. So I think that is one important takeaway. We do have two more questions here. The next one says that QuickBooks has changed extensively in the past few years. If you are a nonprofit that's been using the same QuickBooks program for 10 to 15 years, but things have dramatically changed, is there a good reason to manually re-enter everything and update it, or just close out the books and start fresh over again?
Oh, wow. So no, we never want to delete data and re-enter it. Fortunately, and we just did this for a client, they were on, and QuickBooks has these capabilities. You can take a desktop version and just upload it into the online version. You can transfer one online version to a different version. So they're able to do things behind the scenes that if you want to update or upgrade, your data can be transported or transferred into the new platform that you want to use. We never want to get rid of that historical data. And one of the reasons is that, in 30 years of doing the 990s, I've never had the IRS come back and ask a question, but they always have the right to go back 3 to 7 years and ask a question. So we never want to lose the history if we can avoid it.
That's a very good call out. So, and he wants to clarify his question, or they want to clarify their question. Like the expense line in classes are, the expense line in classes are old and need to be reworked. Do you want, essentially, should we start with a clean slate and I suppose re-enter old data?
So this is where this was very similar to the first question we answered. What I would do is if I'm in the midst of a year and I'm making that change, I would do a journal entry to bring the balance for that year into the new classification, and then then mark the old classification inactive so it can't be used anymore. The history stays, the balance moves. If I'm at a clean year, then I just create what I want to be my categories, and I mark my old categories inactive so they don't necessarily show up on reporting anymore. The data is still there, but the information doesn't show up on the reporting.
Okay, so we have one final question in the chat, and that is around QuickBooks classes. I'm going to broaden this a bit and ask if you know of additional resources for nonprofit organizations to really delve in and scratch their QuickBooks itch.
Yeah, so I'm going to always start by promoting our own firm. So one of the things that we will do is we will sit down with organizations and do a scrub, a train, a onboarding, whatever you need to be able to use software. So we're available for that purpose. The other thing that I will tell you is that I don't know that they're great because they're not necessarily engaged with you on a consistent basis, but it's very easy to find a QuickBooks professional. So that's also one item that I would search out. I think for me personally, those would be the two places I would go. And unfortunately for all of you, one of them is my firm. I saw the question that said, how do you make an account inactive? I'll answer that real quick, Danielle, if I can.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go on my list. I'm going to go to my chart of accounts. So there's all my chart of accounts. If I want to make one inactive, I simply click on it. I then right click and you'll see that it says make account inactive. I click that button. It's gone from my list. If I want to see everything that's inactive, there's a button right here that says include inactive. There they all are. So before I did the training, I went through and made a bunch of accounts inactive. The inactive accounts are marked by an X, and now the history is there. But if someone's trying to enter data, they can't use that label.
Thank you very much for adding to that. Someone in the chat also said that YouTube tutorials are their best friend. And that was always the way that I navigated things in the past when I was a small business owner as well. So there are lots of options, but we are grateful, Don, that you took time out of your day to come and help us with this very in-depth topic in a very short amount of time. Did a fabulous job.
No, thank you. And I apologize for bouncing back and forth, and this is a very tactical topic. So if you have a specific tactical question, do not hesitate to reach out.
Thank you for being willing and making that offer. Keep an eye on your inboxes. Don's information will be there along with the slides that he used today and a link to this forum. Additionally, we really do benefit from you completing the surveys. It helps us to know how to do better, especially in situations like this where we've presented a very tactical forum for you. I want to know if this is the format that works. So keep an eye on those inboxes. Don will be back with us next month again to talk over very important finance basics for nonprofit organizations. We also have a number of other forums coming up, so keep an eye on our Eventbrite and our YouTube channels to check out what we're doing. And with that, we'll send everybody out with a few extra minutes today. Have a good day.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.